Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Fahmi Daniel Haikal. So in this video I will explain our last experiment, which is lab 4, soldering and desoldering technique. So our group member is from group number 3 section 3. The first one is me, Fahmi Daniel, and the second one is Farah. The last one is Frankie. So in this lab, for the first question, we need to answer the question before doing the soldering process. Explain the things to pay attention to. So the things that we need to pay attention before soldering is wearing eye protection during soldering work. Solder can split, so we need to use the lead-free solder. So and next is keep cleaning solvent in dispensing bottles to reduce inhalation hazards. Always wash your hand with soap and water after soldering. Read and understand the material safety data sheet for all materials before beginning work. The place before doing the soldering process need to be considered because the smoke formed is mostly from the flux, which can be irritating, sensitive and aggravate asthma. Therefore, we need to work in well ventilated area. Always use grounded outlet and grounding prong to reduce the risk of electrical damage if a short circuit occurs in the equipment. Prevent damage to electrical cord during soldering. Keep them away from heated tips. Besides that, we need to wear non-flammable or 100% cotton clothing that covers our arms and legs to help prevent burns, and make sure there is a fire extinguisher in the workplace. The other thing that can be considered is we need to make sure the surface are wet properly by removing the oxide from the conductor and maintaining oxide free at elevated temperature before the soldering process. Soldering equipment is the most essential tool for the soldering process, which consists of soldering station, soldering iron and sponge. It is necessary to check the temperature before starting the process. We also need to clean the solder tip before starting the soldering process because an unclean soldering tip will cause flutters later. The copper pad must be first heated by soldering iron before placing the solder. The solder will melt when it contact with the heated pad. Allow the solder to flow over the pad, then the solder can be removed, followed by pulling out the iron tip. And for the next question is state the equipment used to perform the soldering process. So the first equipment is we can use flux to prepare the surface of the conductor prior to soldering. Flux is a chemical compound that is used to promote the bonding of metals by removing the oxide residue simultaneously with the soldering process. And B is soldering station. Soldering station is a multi-purpose power soldering device designed for electronic components soldering. So C is soldering iron. So it is used to melt the solder core, thus creating the solder joint. And next equipment is the iron folder. Iron folder is the soldering iron holder to make sure we can avoid the harmful. We need to place it in the iron holder when soldering iron is not used. And the next is the sponge. Sponge is used to clean the soldering iron tips for best heat transfer. And safety glasses. So before doing the soldering process, we need to wear the safety glasses to avoid the solder split to our eyes. And the next equipment is the non-flammable clothing. This clothing we need to wear before doing the soldering process before because it can cover our arms and legs to help prevent burns. And the last equipment is the solder sucker. This sucker can remove unnecessary soldering from the printed circuit board. If we make a mistake while doing the soldering. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Franklin Rosali, matrix number CE190112, and I will talk about my group's lab report for question 3 and question 4. So for question 3, describe the things to pay attention to when installing components on a PCB. So firstly, things that you need to pay attention to are to keep an eye on the distance between components. This is important because placing a component too close to one another may lead to issues, forcing redesign and refabrication, both of which waste time and money. Second is choose the right package size. If there is room on the board and the present design employs needlessly tiny components, the designer may suggest a bigger components. This will help you prevent problems during the assembling process. The third is examine the progress of your footprint. Another important part of layout design is component footprint. Ensure that their footprints are made precisely according to the datasheet's specified land plan. It is critical to utilize the datasheet numbering key correctly to identify the relevant item and its land pattern. If the data sheet is read improperly, the footprint will be inaccurate, necessitating a full redesign and refabrication of the board. And lastly is make sure to have all necessary indications on the PCB. Missing one pin indications or components, polarity, or orientation indicators on the silk screen is the most common assembling showstopper. Most of installing components on a PCB fails because the PCB fails to specify the position of pin 1 for each IC, or they misrepresent or fail to mention the polarity of some capacitors, diodes, or LEDs. So next is for question 4. Suppose you have installed the components on the PCB with the reference to Lab 2 3D visualization. Take the top view and bottom view of to show the installation of the components for your circuit. So for the question 4, this is the 3D visualization for my circuit. This is the top part and the bottom part. So we can look at it more clearly from the Lab 2 design before. So we open our Proteus and click on the 3D visualizer. So this is my circuit. This is the top part of the circuit. We can see all the components. And also this is the bottom part where we can see the connections between the components. So this is all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Farah Nabila binti Nurizan. Matric number CE190054. For this lab 4, I'm going to present for the question number 5. Are there any other alternative soldering technique besides manual soldering to assemble the component? Okay. There is another alternative of soldering technique besides manual soldering, which is laser soldering. This soldering technique is a technique in which a precisely focused laser beam provides controlled heating of the solder alloy, leading to a fast and non-destructive electrical connection. This method uses a controlled laser beam to transfer energy to the soldering PCB board and the absorbed energy, heat the solder until it reaches its melting temperature. As the result, this technique contact soldering and completely eliminates all of mechanical contacts. Thank you, and that's all from me.